Okay, for the final part of the presentation then, let's start looking at some solutions, right? What can we actually do to protect European data in the cloud? And what I think we're seeing at the moment in the market is really a range of different solutions being offered and adopted. I think it's helpful, for myself at least, to separate these into 4 broad categories. Now, the first category is simply to forego the use of a cloud service, right? To stick with your in-house IT. And that gives you a really high degree of autonomy over your own computer resources because you get to deploy them, right? And you decide how they work. And if a government wants access, they have to come to you. But of course, at the same time, you lose all the advantages that cloud deployments can offer, right? You lose the flexibility, the rapid scalability, and the ability to rely on a specialized provider of these services. And so, instead, it's up to you as an organization to ensure that you can deploy and maintain secure systems yourself. And that's not going to be a solution for everyone. Alternatively, you could use a cloud service, but opt for a European cloud. Right? And the simplest solution there would be to use the service of one of the existing European cloud providers, like OVH or Deutsche Telekom. A more ambitious plan would be to create what's sometimes called a federated European cloud. Right? So that would pool together the resources of different European cloud providers to create a single service based on seamless interoperability between the different parts, and operate at a scale that can then compete with the US hyperscalers. The one thing I would note when using a European cloud provider, as a caveat, is that being European does not mean a company is necessarily immune to US jurisdiction. Right? European companies can also be subject to US jurisdiction, and especially if they have customers, assets, and employees in the US. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, this company is based in Berlin or in Paris, and so it's sovereign. There's more to US jurisdiction than that. The third broad category is what I think of as EU plus US cloud services, so that combine some components from Europe and some components from the US. And a typical example here would be a partnership model, right, wherein a European company operates the underlying infrastructure, while a US company offers the software that runs within that infrastructure. And so we see examples of this in France with Bleu, which is a partnership between Microsoft and Orange, and in Germany with Delos, which is a partnership between Microsoft, Arvato, and SAP. And so what this does is it allows European customers to benefit from US software, but that software is deployed in an isolated way, such that the US company cannot access European customer data. And thereby, this kind of model can prevent US government access. The fourth model then is what I like to call hyperscaler plus. Right? So this essentially means continuing to use one of the US hyperscaler services, but with additional measures in place to protect against foreign government control. So Brad Smith of Microsoft was here in Brussels at the end of April, announcing Microsoft's new commitments to European digital sovereignty. Google, some 2 weeks ago on their blog, launched similar commitments, and AWS also has a sovereignty program for European customers, right? And this is essentially the hyperscalers responding to these concerns around cloud sovereignty. And what they're doing is they are putting in place measures that go beyond merely storing data in Europe, right? They're adding organizational measures, things like having a separate subsidiary with a European board of directors, as well as technical measures, including advanced encryption solutions. The idea being that if the cloud provider cannot access the data in the clear, then they cannot hand that data over to the US government in the clear either. So I would say, broadly speaking, that's the range of solutions that we have, and those exist somewhere on a spectrum of sovereignty, with in-house IT offering the most complete version of sovereignty, and all of the other models offering some form of conditional sovereignty. That is, it will protect from foreign government control under certain conditions. Now, the tricky thing, of course, then, is what do we do, right? Which of these solutions is appropriate for which set of circumstances? And I would argue that that really can only be decided on a case-by-case basis because customer sovereignty needs differ.